What a pleasure to welcome Anson Dorrance to Packer and Durham Live this morning from Chapel Hill. Coach, I got to tell you, this is a treat because, and you well know, I mean, I've been a huge fan for years of the success and the program you've built, but now to put it down in documentary form, what did you learn by going through the process of seeing this produced about the program you built in Chapel Hill?
Well, obviously, I was extraordinarily proud that someone would want to do a documentary, and then Ross did a fantastic job. They allowed us to look at it, so we have a preview before we get to see it tomorrow night. But it was so enjoyable, and what was most enjoyable, honestly, was they interviewed the kids. And so, yes, you saw a piece of the Mia Hamm interview, but, you know, some of my favorite players of all time were interviewed in this. And it's almost like, being alive at your own funeral, and these people are saying such nice things about you, and it's just, you're listening to your own eulogy. And for me, I mean, it's just so heartfelt. So I really appreciated the investment that all these different groups were making, certainly the ACCN and Ross coming in with his great team, and then obviously interviewing our kids. And so for me, this is very special.
Coach, the clip that we just aired with Mia Hamm, who was a superstar among superstars, I thought that exchange just by itself was telling both ways. Number one, what she meant to you and what you meant to her. And to me, that's always like the ultimate respect, isn't it, in terms of the coach and player relationship, and whether you win championships or not. It's almost immaterial to a degree, but just the fact that, hey, today we're trying to get better, and the only way you get better is to work, and you work when you're by yourself. Or I thought that snippet right there to me was the essence of coaching and player relationships, isn't it?
Well, Mark, thank you. Yes, absolutely. I mean, part of the relationship between the players and coaches should be, I will ask things of you. In other words, work yourself to death. And then if you do that for me, I'm going to believe in you. So there's this exchange going back and forth. So that note was a confirmation of all the work she had done, because she did work. And when anyone sees a superstar, and any great a coach of great athletes will tell you this, it's the player that somewhere along the line made a decision to just get after it, and not just get after it occasionally. They wake up in the morning and they've decided, yep, today I'm going to get better. They wake up the next morning, yep, I'm also going to get better today. And so that note was a confirmation of what Mia decided to do to become basically the best player in the world. So yes, Mark, you're spot on.
Anson, there's so many things and so much of a chronology to talk about in the building of the Carolina success in women's soccer. I guess I remember, and I'm going to go back to my childhood here. When I was a teenager, I remember my dad telling me one time he had interviewed you when you were still coaching both men and women. And you told him during the course of the interview that it was different coaching the men's team than the women's team. You had to almost operate two different kind of boards of psychology, if you will, or motivation. So a decision point in the success of this program had to be when you exclusively coached women. When did you make that move, and how did you determine to make that change and make that singular move, if you will?
Wes, you're spot on. I mean, for me, honestly, when I was given that women's team, it was a brave new world. I went to a boys' boarding school for my high school education. The closest I came to a woman in those days, I had the leading female role in the school play my senior year. So that was my relationship with women in high school. So for me, this was like, are you kidding me? You know, who is entrusting me with this team? So it was just absolutely nuts. And I made a travesty of it at first. I thought men and women were the same. The feminist literature back in the early 70s were saying the only reason men and women were different is our environments pushed us in different directions. And so I was going to correct decades of, sociological error and treat my men and women the same. And gosh, it was a disaster. So for me, it was just adjusting to the fact that they're not exactly like your men's team. But for me, it was just an evolution in learning about how they wanted me to lead them. And then I chose the women. Coaching two teams was just overwhelming eventually. And I went in and shared with John Swafford that, John, this is killing me. And I had a great men's assistant back in the day. And I love coaching the women because they were actually coachable. I mean, a lot of the times when you're coaching elite men, they're fighting you. And the women did not fight you. They were wonderfully coachable. So I chose the women. And I loved, different aspects of coaching the men and different aspects of coaching the women. But the bottom line is I decided to go with the women. And looking back, it was just an incredibly good decision. I have loved every day of this.
Coach, if I said to you Title IX, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
Well, it was the explosion of our sport. Talk about just catching that wave. 72 is obviously we're celebrating 50 years of Title IX now, but my program was on the cusp of the beginning of that. We were the first women's varsity in the South, and obviously that gave us a huge advantage. And then what we used to do is I would just demonstrate to people across the spectrum, the ADs across the country. I would send them my budget to let them know that very inexpensively they could, bring in a women's soccer team and start to check boxes for Title IX. And so that's exactly what happened. The SEC came in just wholesale one year. Obviously, their ADs got together and said, we've got to start to check these boxes. So it was that was the driving force behind the evolution of our game, because all of a sudden more and more teams jumped in, and it became the fastest growing sport in collegiate athletics. And so for me, we all owe a huge debt to Title IX.
It's interesting, the emergence of women's sports here in 2022 and in 2020s, if you will, Anson, has been fascinating to watch. But it's got to be somewhat of a step back and smile moment for you, because you've seen this whole thing take shape. You've seen the emergence, not just of soccer. I mean, we've watched what Karen's done in field hockey at Carolina and that sport nationally, what Jenny's done in lacrosse and that sport nationally. Now we see softball in the spring take shape. Women's basketball has been on the rise now for the better part of 20 years. Is that a step back and smile for Anson Dorrance?
Well, there's no question, but also, thank goodness I'm here. I mean, if you look at the caliber of our leadership through the years, from the gentleman that hired me and had the vision to start a women's soccer program. I mean, Mr. Bill Kobe, I owe him a huge debt. I mean, I ended up going from Rainbow Soccer, a co-educational rec league in Chapel Hill. That was my coaching resume, to the top of Division I. Are you kidding me? I love teasing my colleagues whenever I'm talking about, I didn't go, from high school to junior college to, Division III, II, and then finally get to a school like the University of North Carolina. I went from co-educational recreational soccer in Chapel Hill to the top of Division I. So it was Mr. Bill Kobe. But then he's the one that said, Anson, come look at this women's club. They've petitioned for varsity status. Tell me what you think. And I'm thinking, I have no issue with this. I watched them play. I thought they were great. I had a list of coaches that I was going to, recommend to him when I was hired as the men's coach. And I was thinking, I'm going to shill for this wonderful club coach. And I would love a colleague, another team on campus. And then all of a sudden he said, Anson, I'll make your part-time men's position full-time if you will also coach the women. And so leaders like Bill Kobe, but all the leaders we've had here, just going through all of them. I mean, Swaff, and personally, I absolutely loved all of our leadership. And even now, I mean, I love being in an environment where the women's teams are respected. And you're not respected unless the athletic director is fully in with that culture. And we've had athletic directors that have been fully in with the women's athletic teams in this campus from the beginning, going all the way back to Mr. Bill Kobe. And so we owe all of them a great debt. And Mr. Bador, I mean, I just absolutely love the man. I mean, I've got relationships with all of them. I mean, right now I love playing pickleball with my current boss, Bubba Cunningham. So the relationships they've established across the board for all of the women's coaches and teams, it's unique here at UNC, and I love being a part of it.
God, there's so many things I want to take from that statement. Number one, I don't care what it is. It's an athletic department, a pizza parlor, an insurance company, a network. If you're weak at the top, you're bound to fail, right? You've got to have great leadership. It starts at the top, and that is so true regardless of the walk of life. But you just said something at the end. I was going to ask you something about recruiting. I'm like, no, forget that. I want to know this. Those pickleball games with Bubba now, I got to figure, don't fool anybody. The competitive nature on both sides has got to be pretty intense when you two get together for a pickleball match.
Well, I got to give Bubba full credit. He comes from a tennis background. His overheads are devastating. So if we get that ball up a little high, it's coming right down your throat. And the thing I love about Bubba is he doesn't have any compassion for you. I mean, he's actually aiming it at the side of your head. And so you better take your sunglasses off, because I'll tell you, those sunglasses might be driven right into the back of your brain. And I love playing with him. I love playing against him. And he's created this incredible culture here among all the coaches as we get together and celebrate all kinds of things. Now, I don't go on his 5Ks with him. Gosh, I hate running, and I hate to admit that after all these years of playing soccer, most of my life. But I hate running. So what do I jump into? Yeah, I jump into the pickleball contest, and he's an excellent player.
Well, I can relate to hating the running part of it. I totally get all that stuff. By the way, yesterday, Alonzo Highsmith joined us, and he's now the new GM for Miami football. Great player. The Miami, of course, the championship started with them in the 80s, and he's a talent evaluator. We talked about how college football, high school to college to pro, with personnel has changed. I'm going to ask you the same question. You talked about being on the cutting edge with all of this. The difference now between when you go recruit or you see girls playing junior high school, however far back you need to go, talk about how different it is in terms of the personnel today versus where it was when this thing got started. Nutrition, fundamentals, intensity. I know it's a different universe, but at the core, it still has to be the same stuff, doesn't it, at the end of the day?
Well, it does, and you are absolutely spot on. Although, let me give credit to the all-time greats. I mean, the Mia Hamms, the Christine Lillys, the Cindy Parlows, they would still be great in the modern game. What's changed is the average player is now gone through the roof. And now, in the old days, honestly, there wouldn't be a player on a team outside the top 20 that could get on the field for us. And now I am looking at teams that have an RPI ranking of 75, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there are 3 kids on that field that can step in and start for us. And so now the number of outstanding players that are playing at a collegiate level has gone through the roof. And so you're right. The youth coaches are doing a better and better job. And obviously there's so much information for them. They can watch all the great teams play. I mean, listen to this now. I mean, this will shock both of you. 91,000 people have paid top dollar to watch Barcelona play women's football in their last 2 home games. 91,000 people. And so what this is telling all of us is, you know what, there are going to be a lot of soccer women millionaires out there now in our game when 91,000 people are paying money to watch you play. And so our game's exploding. And I think it's attracting these young players to jump in because they see a future in it. And I am so excited to, I guess, still be alive, when our game is just going right through the roof.
Coach, as far as this documentary goes, is there a moment that, again, we just saw the Mia Hamm thing, which I thought was great, but is there a moment in this documentary that even caught you by surprise, that you might have learned something from a player that, man, I never realized that?
Well, what I absolutely love is their memory of their 4 years in Chapel Hill. And I'll tell you, if this doesn't recruit for us, I don't know what else anyone can do, because holy cow, I love what my kids are saying on this documentary about their experience. Because it's not like, we're easy on them. I mean, our demands for these young women to compete at the highest level are pretty extraordinary. So much so that I had a player recently that was playing at a pro level that was telling me, they're very critical of her professional coach. And she was very complimentary of her experience at UNC, and she said something effective, After I played for you, I thought I could play for anyone, basically implying, my gosh, you were so hard on me. But then she said, but through the criticism, I could feel your love. And I can feel the love. I can feel the love of my kids through the documentary. And I just absolutely love it because we are wonderfully demanding of these extraordinary young women. And to hear them talk about their appreciation for that just goes right to the middle of my heart.
Well, I tell you what, you have been a great testament to what it's all about, and that's doing it the right way. Honor having you on. I can't wait to see the series, and again, continued success, and we do appreciate the time always.
Well, again, I go back to both of your dads. I'm connected with them. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with both of you. So, Mark, Wes, thank you.
You got it, Anson. Take care of yourself. Be good.